Okay. So, can we start by you introducing yourself?
My name is Joel Potrykus, writer and director of Vulcanizadora from Grand Rapids, Michigan.
Okay. First, congratulations on your movie. It was actually original, very different from what we usually see. Um, I understand that this story is quite personal. Um, can you tell me where the idea came from to put these two characters in the middle of the woods and how you built them?
It actually came from. I was rewatching the movie Jerry by Gus Van Sant. Have you seen that?
It's funny you say that because it's the first thing that struck me. I was like, it's a bit like Jerry, but well,
and so
very
when
different.
I saw Jerry, I thought I misinterpreted the movie. I thought that's what they were doing, is what they were doing in Vulcanizadora. I didn't know that they were just lost and find their way back. I thought they had a reason, a really dark reason to be out there. And then when it ended, I thought it ended when it should be beginning. I thought the most intriguing part was at the very end of the movie, and then just the credits come up, and I was like, I misunderstood the whole thing, and was like, I think that my misreading of that movie is a more interesting story. So I started to write it, and then so that's what the idea of kind of the wilderness, and there's no other people, and it's isolated. And so then you start to think about what two characters would inhabit the story. And I always work with Josh Burge, so I wanted him in it. And I was talking to a really, really famous actor about it, and he looked very similar. He didn't look that. He looked similar to Josh Burge, and I thought that it would have been weird to have them together. Maybe no. But I also thought their personality types were so similar that there would have been no contrast. And I thought the other character needed to be really funny to make the dark stuff kind of balance out and make it more unpredictable. So when I started writing it, I was trying to think about who could really be the funny character. And his name is Andre Highland. But he's already in a movie called Relaxer that I made a few years ago.
Oh, yeah.
And so that would have been too difficult because people would have been like, those are the two guys in Relaxer. So I was like, okay, I know how to do this. So I was like, I will do it. I was like, but I've already been in this movie with Josh called Buzzard. And then I was like, well, what if it's just that? Those guys 10 years later see what they're up to. And once I realized that I could do that, the movie was really simple and the story really came out. And then because I'm playing the Derek character, like my nightmare version of who I what I could what could happen to me as a dad, and all of my big fears I put into that character, who's trying to mask it with humor and being really silly still from his character from Buzzard. So I don't know, that's how it came, as me just kind of stealing from Gus Van Sant and then stealing from myself. And then it just like is the easiest story I've ever written. And as soon as I knew that, I just loved it. I was just like, this is going to work. I love it. And I never feel that way about my stories. Usually I spend like a year just hitting my head against the wall, feeling really frustrated about it, and it's not going to work. This one, and I was just really confident with it. And yeah, it's all like there's in these both of the characters are kind of exhibiting both of my big fears.
Yeah, because so you're a father, right?
Yes.
Okay. And while we're talking about the characters, it kind of struck me about Derek. In the beginning of the movie, he's a bit like we. How can I say that? We don't really like him. I mean, he sounds like a bit annoying. Maybe.
Yeah, he's really obnoxious. Yeah.
And it's like he knows everything, but actually doesn't know much about camping and stuff.
Yeah.
So was it like in your mind from the beginning, or it kind of happened?
It just kind of happened. I figured I just know that character really well, so like put him in the outdoors. He thinks he's gonna know everything and he's prepared. Doesn't really know, and he's just one of those people that just talks endlessly without thinking.
Yeah, he talks a lot.
Yeah, and that was the whole point. Is I told Josh, as he's Marty, I said, you're not gonna let me do it, and so I didn't really write the dialogue. just start
Okay.
talking and just I was like, in this scene I'll talk about fish. In this scene I'll talk about camping equipment, or this scene I'll just be going to the bathroom and just let me. And there were certain moments where we had to kind of like rehearse it to make sure that it worked. But typically, it was just come up with a topic and then I would just start rambling for a long time. And
Well,
we did it most things in one take.
sounds so like real or natural.
Maybe.
I mean, the story is a bit like out there at
Yeah.
some point, but it sounds real, you know,
Good.
when Derek talks and talks and talks.
Yeah, and me and Josh know each other really well, like really close friends. So
But that's not so clear though.
yeah.
At some point, we know they have some kind of backstory.
Mhm.
I mean, it
Oh, I'm
comes
saying
through
me
slowly,
and Josh,
but-
the real
Oh, the real
person. He just we know each other's rhythms, and I know when he's gonna talk, and he kind of knows when I'm gonna talk. So it was just really easy to do. But yeah, in the film, Marty and Derek, those characters, I think Derek thinks that Marty's his best friend, and Marty doesn't have a best friend.
Yeah, Marty seems, well, it's not clear where he comes from.
Yeah.
We understand that he went to prison for a while,
Yeah.
but it sounds like not so long.
Right.
And I'm gonna go to the point of the movie. In well, they are it's a trip.
Sure. Yeah.
Well, it's physical trip, but it's mostly I think a trip to well, I don't want to say it, but let's say they want to take care of something.
They want to take care of something.
Okay. They have some kind of a device, you know, the metal
Yeah.
thing. I want you to tell me about that. Where does the way it's built, where does it come from?
Yeah, so my original thought they were gonna have guns,
Yeah.
and then I started to think that that was too easy and too obvious, and then they were gonna go in the water, and something was gonna happen in the water. But then I thought that was really complicated, and so then my production designer said, "What about a firework?" And I was like, okay. For a couple of days, I was like, that's too crazy, that's too extreme. And I was like, no, that's really great. That's like extreme. That is crazy and extreme. That's what I want. And so we started to think about, well, you could just remove the firework really easily. And we're like, well, we have to have a contraption to keep it in there, locked in there. And so we just started to think about how that would stay in there. And I always like to have an appliance or device. I made that buzzard. He's got like a Freddy Krueger glove, and this one he creates this mask that's kind of like something you might see at a Saw, or like a Saw film or something. But my brother designed that and just built it from spare parts, and I thought it was like a really just a strong visual for the movie, and I didn't want to explain what it is when they first put it on.
Yeah, he's sitting and like playing
kind of,
with it.
adjusting it and thing, and people's heads wonder what that strange
Oh,
metal
it works.
contraption is. So yeah, I just thought it would be a strong visual thing that also served a purpose in the movie. Their idea.
Because we're not sure. I mean, for Martin, right?
Yeah.
For from the beginning until pretty much the end, we know that this is like what he wants to do. You know?
Yeah.
For Derek, I mean, it sounds like he wants to please his friend. You know.
Yeah.
The more he talks, eventually he starts talking really about himself, and we get to know actually why he's there and how he feels with like the kid and the ex and stuff. So he becomes more sympathetic. But we, I mean, it's part of the interesting part of the movie. It's why is he doing? I don't know where I was going with that, but so do you have like, because well, I'll see it and we'll see if I keep it. But in the end, switch places because he doesn't really. I guess he wants to just. He realizes something. They both realize something, and Martin has to carry that weight.
Yeah.
And the scene with is surreal, but at the same time, it kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
So how did it come?
Yeah, he's got like survivor's guilt. It's just about guilt, that's which is something that I always have. I don't know why. I carry guilt, and so I wanted to give that guilt to Marty. Um, yeah, I wanted. That's what it is. Like Marty's the one who wants, and Derek kind of chickens out at the end, and so that to me was the more interesting story to keep him around, Marty around, and kind of no one believes him, no one wants to listen to him, which I think is kind of sad when it's almost like he's the boy that cried wolf or something. Nobody is interested. Is really big, obvious. He's got a video of it. He wants to. Dad, please listen to me. Please listen to me. And no one listens to him. And I think that is more insight into why he's so unhappy and depressed. Is that he doesn't have literally no one listens to him or believes him or cares about him. And so yeah, that second half of the story is to me the most important part of it. That's where in Jerry, I wish we would have stayed with Matt Damon for another 20 or 30 minutes to see what was that like. Because that to me is the more kind of psychologically interesting part of that whole.
Yeah, because in the end, I mean, your movie is I mean, there are. It's about this kind of companionship, but also solitude. You know?
Yeah,
So
for sure.
They're both very alone.
Yeah.
I mean, Derek seems that after splitting up with just like stayed alone.
Yeah.
And Martin, we don't know much about him actually, but
Yeah.
he did some kind of a crime, which, from what we know, doesn't seem to be like that bad.
It's not like he's not going to get sentenced to death or anything. He just knows that he doesn't want to go back to prison, and he'd rather be gone than go back to prison. So he's living in a hell, real hell, like a living hell, which is Derek's big fear, is like going to hell. And so there's a lot of, like, what's better, to live or to die if you're unhappy? You know what I mean? That's like what it all is. It's bleak, man. You know what I mean? It's and I don't want it to feel like nihilistic, but it really is. I don't know where it all comes from, but I don't know. I guess some people. I assume everybody has these weird dark thoughts of doing bad things to people or themselves, and that's really all it is. You can't even. You fail at everything, and you can't even do that. You fail at achieving, leaving Earth or something.
I mean, it's sad. He's clearly a sad person.
It's supposed to be a sad movie disguised, at least for the first half, as like a comedy or something. But to me, it's like supposed to just be sad. Like that's
Well, it
the
is.
emotion.
I mean, after we move on to the fact that Derek is quite annoying, once the more we go in the story, the more we realize that actually it's about loneliness and about not being to move on from something.
Yeah.
And I think the fact that this something is not really clear, for at least even at the end, there are still some unclear matters. I think doing this is a good way to, like, anybody can feel like can um, can refer to it. I never lived what those guys lived, but
Right.
I can imagine, because we all, like you said earlier, we all have some things that stick in our minds that we failed at this, we failed at that, and I think everyone at some point thinks they are a failure.
Yeah, and I didn't want to explain too much. I wanted to give the audience just enough to understand where they're coming from, but not give them too much where they feel like it's so specific to the characters. I wanted people to go like, oh yeah, I have that, a little bit of that fear, and I have a little bit of that fear. I feel sometimes movies are so specific that you kind of lose the ability sometimes, because once you say, oh, I have nothing in common with that person, then it's just difficult to connect with them, I think. So I just want to give them just enough, not be too specific or explain too much, I guess.
Well, I think that you did that great. I mean, we know just enough so we can, like, understand the movie and how it works, but at the same time, there's a lot that we can imagine by ourselves.
Yeah.
Um, I have a question though.
Mm-hmm.
Near the beginning of their trip,
Mm-hmm.
at some point they're sitting, and I don't remember which character. They have like black little pasty or something, you know, and they burn it,
Yeah.
and it creates some kind of,
Yeah.
I don't know, like tentacles or
Yeah.
what is that?
Those are, I don't know, in the U.S. Andy, what do you call those here? We call them black snakes. Fireworks are. You ever heard of those? So they're like little black pellets, and you light them, and they like grow. They're like a kid's firework. They like grow like a like a charcoal snake out of them. Do you know those? Those are, and I just thought
Yeah.
everybody would know. So they're kids' fireworks, and you're just supposed to light a little tiny piece for like 10
Ah.
seconds. But I thought it would be cool to just put a whole pile of them
Yeah,
together,
yeah,
which
yeah.
I've never seen because your mom and dad would always be like, no, just do one at a time. So that was the first time. We didn't even test it. I was like, just put them on
Okay.
there, roll. And I was like, this is amazing.
Yeah, it's
so
really
yeah, it's
nice.
just a little kid's firework that I just assumed everybody would immediately know. But hearing people, so many people don't know what those are. They're called black snakes. At least where I'm from, they're called black snakes.
I have to find that because, I mean, it and it adds some kind of weirdness to the
Yeah.
movie. Like, what the hell?
Yeah.
Because it's already like, first you're like, why are they doing? Martin is so cold.
Yeah.
You know, it feels like it. They don't really connect. You know,
Mhm.
because Martin seems to find Derek as annoying as we do in the beginning.
Yeah.
And I don't know, but yeah,
Yeah,
this scene was
and
nice.
they occasionally share like these kind of boyish, immature like
Yeah, it makes us
games.
believe that maybe their relationship grows far. You
To be like maybe they've known each other a long time, but they've grown apart and they have different interests, and
Yeah.
yeah, they still like doing fireworks together or something.
Well, we kind of believe that Martin has some kind of maybe not pyromancy, but you know he seems to like playing
Yeah.
with fire,
Yeah,
and
exactly.
the device he makes, I mean, with the fireworks or it seems a bit stronger, but
Yeah, there's a lot of kids and guys I grew up with who just like would make bombs out of like household things, and they would make fire weapons and guitars and things. And Marty's kind of one of those guys, to me at least, is he's always making. He's so bored. He's like creating dangerous things in his basement or something. Like a really dangerous person. But you was probably in a lot of trouble. So yeah, that's just part of it. He's just, to me, seems like one of those guys I knew when I was a kid that was always just like playing with fire, basically.
the scene where
Yeah.
they actually do their plan,
Yeah.
it's amazing. We feel like a real emotion, and we really feel bad for Derek actually. Really, you know, like he really looks like a kid, you know.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, he does. When we were shooting it, we didn't rehearse that at all.
no?
And all I told Josh, I said, just get me to do it, and I don't want to do it. Whatever, yell at me, whatever. And every time I was ready to do it, I started crying again or like limping down. So yeah, I like those moments. That was like, and we had things in our mouth and we were drooling, and it was really uncomfortable. So
Hey, it's
just
quite
kinda,
big actually.
yeah. Yeah, so the whole time we never took a break. It was like, let's just, I was like, oh, let's do it now. And it was like 10 minutes of really being uncomfortable, and me trying to direct him with all of that in my mouth, and it's cool.
How, I mean, how can you get this? Because you wrote the movie,
Mhm.
you're directing it, so you know where it's going.
Yeah.
How how can you play it? Like you say, convince me, but I mean, in a way, you are already convinced. I mean, you're creating the movie. So how did you play it? Because it really sounds like
Yeah, I just told him I'm not gonna do one, two, three. I'm not gonna do it. So you just have to make me do it, and no matter what, I'm not gonna do it. So grab me, shove me, yell at me, whatever you do. And then when I gave like a wink or something when we finally was like ready to do it.
okay.
That's when we knew to do it. I was like, but until then, do it. So you just have
Well,
to
in the
convince
end,
me to
he
do
didn't
it.
really do it.
Right? Yeah.
You
It puts
know,
it
it's
back. Yeah.
okay. I just want to finish with something. You talk about your previous movie, or second previous, I'm not sure, relaxer.
Yeah.
I mean, you seem to like to have like not so many characters. Relaxer is I mean, it's two guys hidden somewhere, you know. So how do you go from this to that? Because I mean, if I remember well, it's the same actor.
Yeah, yeah, same actor. Yeah, I typically don't like a lot. I don't like a lot of people in my movies. Really enjoy the process of making movies, and so the more people you get involved, the more complicated it gets and difficult. You know, like trying to get
Yeah.
people's schedules. So I try to write for the characters just so it's easier and it's just a simpler story. But with this one, um, yeah, the second half does have a lot of locations, but we shot the whole movie in 9 days, um, and everything. I don't know. It was just well planned out. But I typically do just like Jerry. I love stories about two people,
Mm.
like something just so simple and clean about that, and so the second half of the movie is supposed to be a contrast to the first half, like a lot of people, a lot of locations, but it's just easier for me
Well,
to make
it
a
makes
movie
sense though.
with
The
less
less
people.
people you have involved, the
Yeah,
less.
and we don't have a lot of money to make these movies, so less people to pay, less locations to try to get. So it's so difficult to make a movie that I just don't want to make it more difficult for myself. And it seems like most of the movies I really love, for the most part, are simpler, have less people, less locations, and things like that.
Well, it gives you more occasion also to develop your characters.
Yeah.
Even if you don't see a lot about them, you know, it still.
We're just with them, looking
Yeah,
at them.
exactly.
You get to learn about people just
And
because you're with
and
them
I
in the
like
room.
the fact that you did not put
Good.
too many people explain the past with
Yeah.
flashbacks. Here it's just like few sentences, you know, like they
Yeah.
say this, that, okay, you understand this. But
Again, I hate over explaining things. I hate flashbacks. I don't. They never for me. Although I did. What did I just see? I just saw how to build a no how to how to blow up a pipeline. Have you seen that?
no, not yet.
Oh, it's really great. It
Seems
has
nice though.
flashbacks that work. It's like
Okay.
one of the few movies that I was
It's
like,
rare. It's rare. Usually it's like
yeah,
it sounds like it's an easy way to like. Yeah.
totally, yeah, to exposition to just like cover things. How to blow up a pipeline. It had flashbacks. I really like that movie, and it's really simple. But yeah, typically flashback. I'm like, you couldn't have come up with a better way
Yeah.
to tell the audience why somebody's doing something. So good. Glad you
Cool.
dug it.
Well, I loved it, and for the other one though, but I really liked it. Relaxer. I really like that one.
Good.
But
Good.
Vulcani. Okay, you have to tell me what's that title.
It means it's Spanish for tire repair shop,
Okay.
which is the place that
Yeah.
Marty can movie. I just love that word. It's not that important to the story. I just think it's a beautiful word.
Well, I think the title made me want to watch it
Cool.
because I usually don't the stories because most of the time they say too much,
Yeah, I'm with
and
you.
then you know how it's gonna end before it starts. So
To
the
me, it's
title was like, oh, it seems interesting, and I saw like two guys lost in the woods. I'm
yeah.
like,
Movie titles that sound like album titles. It sounded like an
oh
album,
yeah,
like a Pixies album or something
yeah,
called
it's
that.
true. So tonight is we're the 19th. So we
Yeah, the big international premiere.
yeah, nervous a bit.
No,
No.
I'm only nervous that it plays right, that there's no technical problems.
Oh
That's my
yeah.
only fear, is that it's gonna jitter in the middle or the sound is gonna go out or
Yeah, it
something.
happens
So
sometimes, but yeah.
DCPs are pretty reliable. So yeah, I'm feeling pretty good about it. I don't get nervous anymore at this point. I don't get nervous about. I get nervous about making the movie, but people watching it, I don't get nervous. I just don't like to ask people what they thought. I don't like to give people's. And you said you liked it. That's great.
Yeah.
But what'd you think? Did you like it? I'm like, and I hate doing that. I hate asking people what they thought of
Well,
stuff.
for me, making a movie is about being satisfied yourself.
Yeah,
If
totally.
people like it, well,
Exactly.
that's a nice plus. If they don't, well, if you like it, you know?
I love the movie, so I don't really. It doesn't. There's nothing that can make me disappointed or anything,
Yeah, and
because
at
I
this
love
point
the
anyway.
movie, and
Yeah.
so if somebody else doesn't love it, it doesn't matter to me.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
and I wish you a good international premiere tonight.
Thank you.